Welcome back to Profi Plays. I'm Profi, and we're going to be picking up here again with our Shadowdark, playing through that solo. So just, it's been a little while, so be a little bit rusty in terms of, remembering anything that happened. Right, so what we were doing here, we were using uh, Shadowdark from Elsie Dion and her Solo Dark supplement in order to play through this game. I'm using the sandbox generator to kind of develop the area that we're going through, and that's mostly it, I think. Oh, and we're also using for our campaign structure, using the idea of Runehammer, which I have a video about, possibility of using this for a solo structure, right, in terms of plot and the like. So where we are right now in this campaign, just as a reminder, we have our two PCs, and that is the wizard, who I've decided, because I like wizards, I've kind of made him the main character, and then he has a companion. So the main character is Varos, right? Varos, the elf wizard, who is very, I think squishy is the term that is probably most appropriate here. And then Sariel, his warrior or fighter companion. Okay, so the two of them are currently in this village. The village's name is King's Ham, which I had forgotten, so I had to look at that for a minute. Right, so we have right here in the center, there's the village of King's Ham. And there was this kind of odd attack that happened, and a will-o-wisp showed up, right, drew a bunch of people out of town, right, into the marshes off this direction, right, and some of them have just vanished. The others who managed to get back, at the very least, the village was not happy with us to begin with. We were there, apparently to do research or something like that, was the goal. Right, but now we have been pulled into this. The village doesn't want us there anyway, so we're kind of ready to go. But we were wondering, like, well, who is it that's attacking us? Because we have both kind of this mental effect from the will-o-wisp that's drawing people out into the marsh, but then we also had another effect where a horse. We've now experienced two different horses going crazy, right? So one of which was a merchant's horse, the merchant coming from the castle up to the north. As they were traveling, the horse just went nuts and went off into the marsh, right? And they crash right here by a particular cave. In that cave, what was there? Because remember, there was draconic writing indicated that there was something about this cave that hurt people's luck. Well, I assume if you're ending up in a cave in the middle of the marsh, you don't have great luck to start with. Anyway, right? So that was something that we discovered here. So we went to the abbey with which this village is associated, that provide supplies and the like. We didn't find anything there that was particularly suspicious that would explain much, but we did manage to realize, as Varos, as he was sleeping, he woke up with this realization that maybe what it is not so much anybody attacking the abbey or this particular village. Instead, we noted that this abbey and village are very closely associated with this faction up here that hits these two castles. This castle here, and then another castle here, another this is, I think, these are 2 mile hexes. So about 4 miles to the north, there's one castle, and another 4 miles to the north, there's another castle. These two are associated with each other. And then there are a number of, you can see the various layers and the like around. But one thing we noted is that these two castles, right, which are part of the same faction, that faction is currently not getting along well, right? With a couple other neighboring factions. So one of which there's open war between them and this abbey here, and also there's hostility between them and this abbey here. Okay, right. So we think that probably the problem is coming from one of these two abbeys. So our plan right now is we are going to, from the abbey where we are here, we're going to head north and try to get to this abbey, and I guess we'll see what happens. All right. So, and see what happens. That's literally what you do. You play to see what happens. So we're going to start then. We both managed to heal and get some HP back. Um, I did. Oh, we did find some chainmail armor, which Serial has now donned. So his AC is now over 14, which is the same as what Varos is whenever he activates his mage armor, assuming that he can get the mage armor to work. Oops. But I mean, he's actually been pretty good as a spellcaster. We haven't had any like big mishaps or anything like that from him yet. All right, so let's go ahead and head north. Right, so we are. I'm just gonna kind of this. Wait, actually, you know what? I have somewhere here. There we go. Right there. So you're currently at the Abbey. We're going to move north here. It's a oversized, perhaps, but yeah, here's what you got. Right. Okay, so this one doesn't look like there are any particular features here, but let's say if we do run into some kind of random encounter. I rolled a 5. We're doing random encounters on a 1 on a d6, so no random encounters yet. So we travel. It's 2 miles, so it's not going to be. Uh, I imagine we can probably make this trip in a day without too much problem. Then we travel another 2 miles north. Any encounters here? No, it's a 6. We definitely don't have encounters here. Another 2 miles north. Here, in terms of kind of terrain, we were traveling first through hills, then through mountains. So the mountains would be slower going, but we still managed to get through without actually encountering anything. Uh, Now we're coming to marshes. Again, it's going to be kind of slow going, I imagine. But again, did not encounter anything except wandering through the marsh. And finally, arriving at the Abbey. Do we have any random encounters as we arrive here? We do not. So we get to the Abbey without any problems. So let's find out about this Abbey. So it's Abbey D10, what it is. So here's what we know about this Abbey. Right, so this is the Good-Hope Abbey. They're relatively small, has 60 religious here, combination of monks and nuns. In terms of what we find here as we approach, they're like abbeys in this setting are typically surrounded by a stone wall, right? And inside of that stone wall, you have you have quarters, you have like a kitchen area, these kinds of things. This one specifically has fountain garden. It has some room for critical patients. So this is an abbey that does do healing. It has a scriptorium and library. It also has a watchtower. So that means, of course, people are going to see us coming. Also, the neighboring farm has cows and sheep at it. So imagine as we're heading through the marsh, there's an area that is a bit more drained that they had to do that to make this land that's more suitable for their various livestock to be able to graze. And then we also have tanners as well. Okay, that's what happens with these cows. Apparently, they are raised for the leather. And this is someplace we know they have a scriptorium. They do specialize in copying and translations. Some of the history of this one, uh, it apparently was relocated at some point in its history. So that's what we know as we're approaching this. So I want to find out a little bit more as we're coming up to this abbey. Right. So now one thing we know is that they do have they are in you could say open war with the neighboring castles. Now, my guess is that a lot of that conflict is not going to happen right here at the Abbey, although this Abbey would be considered disputed territory, as typically castles will claim everything within their own hex and then also every surrounding hex. So this castle really wants this abbey to be part of its faction. It is not so interested, it seems, given that we have this conflict. Right, so let's find out a little bit more about kind of this abbey and its attitude right toward our characters as we approach. Okay, so checking that out, I'm now pulling up here. All right, so we've got all the locations and all that. Da, da, da. Okay, I wanted find. Okay, I want to find their attitude toward. Okay, here we go. So apparently, in Sandbox, the Sandbox generator, it doesn't specifically say you should roll for disposition. Um, we're gonna do that. No. Okay, so hey, I can use whatever I want. So let's do this. Disposition, and this is going to be modified here. Oh wait. Shadowdark has that kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't need to use this. So yeah, let's use the actual. That is going to be in the Game Master's Guide. If I flip through, look for reaction. Perfect. All right. So Varos is the one taking the lead here. I might want to change that at some point because he's as strong a character as Sariel is. Sariel just have better stats on the whole. But yeah, this is what the relationship is. And, if that makes life harder, well, sometimes that's the way it goes, right? So the reaction roll here, it's a 2d6 that I'll be rolling. All of this I found in the Shadowdark Quick Start in the Game Master's Guide. Right, so 2d6 plus charisma, which is a -2. So as Varos is approaching, let's see what the attitude of. Okay, so I rolled a 9. That makes it 7, so suspicious. Okay, that's not bad. Right, so as we approach, right, the various um, monks, nuns, and so on, as they're going about their business, like taking care of livestock outside of the abbey, taking care of the ill inside of the abbey as well. Right, so we approach, we are not obviously harmed or anything like that, so I don't think they would feel any sense of obligation to let us in. Right, so that is a point against us. Right, so I need to find out more about the person that runs this abbey. Right, so let's go ahead and I'm going to pull up here. Let's do the. Okay, I know the quick character creation stuff in the player's guide. There we go. Right, so let's find out what type of person is leading this abbey. So we come, we say we want to speak, right, to the abbot or abbess, whoever it is that's in charge, and let's find out who this kind of person is. I'm gonna go ahead and roll a d12. D12 tells me 6. It's an elf. I think literally every character that I have encountered has been an elf to this point. Right, so apparently it's an elf. Right, right. So there's an elf in charge, and that elf I assume is going to have a name. So let's check to see what name this person might have. Okay, so switch back to the Game Master's Guide. Okay, so this elf is named. Use D20 for that one. Or Theron. Right, so it's the abbot. The abbot is named Theron, who's in charge of this abbey. Right, yeah, and his attitude toward us is somewhat suspicious. Okay, all right, so we ask them for some audience. Could say that, and let's see what happens. So we go in. Right, there we are. Right, and we approach the abbot. Oh, that's perfect framing there. Right, pieces of cardboard and one little piece of wood. Right, so I need to make a note of Farron and who that is. All right, so Farron, the elf, the elf priest, who is the abbot overseeing this particular area. There's my paper. All right, Professor, you're well prepared here. All right. So in this session, so we have the abbot, Farron, the elf. All right. So as we approach, I'm trying to think of how we're going to approach this, because really what we want to know is whether someone associated with this abbey has been, you know, trying to do the things we've observed, right? Trying to drive horses crazy, right? And also trying to draw away support, right, from this particular castle. Right? And so I think that actually we I don't know that we want to come in directly and say this because that feels like it's pretty low charisma, but I don't know that we're that stupid at the same time. So are you trying to drive their horses nuts? That's a weird thing to say. So I don't think that's the approach. So I think it's much more we are going to be looking for a place to stay, to rest, to recuperate as We have been facing some hardships in the marshes, so all of this is technically true. That's not these marshes. Right, so we've been facing these hardships in the marshes, and we would like, we would very much hope they would grant us the the hospitality, right, of your abbey. They may stay here for a few days, right, to recover, to recuperate, right, to pray. And neither of us is a priest, so that's not particularly necessary. But in these types of things, so is that something that you could accommodate? All right. So I think my hope is that this. I think this is going to be relatively easy. So I think maybe like a 9 is what we're shooting for here. So I'm going to go ahead and have Varos give this speech. Oh goodness, this is not good. But he pulls it off. Right. So we roll a 19 minus 2. That's a 17. Right. So the Abbot Theron says, "Well, of course, right. Our grounds are open to you." No, I think it makes sense because he is somewhat suspicious. That one thing is that he's going to demand that they do work, and I think this is a reasonable thing. They are clearly in reasonably good health, right? So yeah, so you will of course be expected to earn your keep in doing work around the abbey. Um, but I think that that's basically if you do that, then you are welcome to stay as long as you need. I know certainly, right, we could use some help in the infirmary as we will often take in, right, the injured and the ill. We certainly could use help out in the fields, right, caring for our livestock. We could use help in the tannery and so on. Now, I would note none of these are things that really fit either the background of Varos, who grew up as a noble, nor of Sariel, who was a sailor, right? So, oh well. It's just the way it is. Right. So I think yes, we agree to that. Really, because what we want to do is snoop around. Okay. Right. So now, just as a reminder, kind of where we are in the Runehammer storyline, we're still in the beginning. Now, in the beginning, what happens? Right. We started with an attack. We revealed a mystery. There's something weird going on here. Now, what we need to do is get to the point where a villain will be revealed, and this tends to look like right, doing a bunch of errands. Right. So what we need to do is try to get to that villain reveal. So I think here we are going to be working, we're also going to be snooping around to see, because it makes sense to me that somebody connected with this abbey or with the other abbey, or maybe somebody else we've not thought of yet, right? Uh, it should be some kind of wizard, right, that has the ability to conjure, control monsters. That's somebody we need has the ability to drive animals insane. That feels like a wizardy power much more than a clericy power. As I don't see it being very clericy. I guess is it. No, I might be wrong, right, but that's just the way that it feels to me. Right, so I mean, like things like charm, right? Charm is a wizard ability, not a cleric ability. So it's kind of inverting that, I suppose. So I think that that is the plan then. So as we're working, we're also going to be snooping around. So what I think I'm going to do for that, I'm going to have each of my characters roll a wisdom check, right? So Varos is relatively good with wisdom. Cyril is relatively not as good at wisdom. So here we go. All right, so Varos is going to roll. Got a 10 plus 1, so that'd be an 11. Not quite good enough for what I'd hope. I'd hope like a 12 or so. I'm going to say if we don't hit it here, then we're just going to be spending more time here. That more time means that something else is probably happening out around. And oh, that was absolutely miserable. Serial he rolled a 3, which would be adjusted to a 2 once you account for his modifier. That's just awful. Right, so something else is happening out around us. Okay, so let's go ahead. I actually want to roll in the Solar Dark tables. And so Solo Dark does have prompt tables. Um, I could do that, although there's also another set of tables that I could use from the Game Masters. So what is this? Yeah, let's go ahead and roll on the rumor table because I think that there is a rumor table if I recall correctly. in the Game Master's quick start information. Right, so Game Master quick start, we have here rumors. Bingo. All right, so something happened out there. So this may be something. Well, I think it makes sense we get some inkling of this. 56 is what I rolled on the rumors table. A dying sage is calling for a mighty group of heroes. Interesting, right? So apparently, some wizard is trying to gather heroes together. That in itself is interesting because we already know that a wizard is probably the root of the problem here. So the question is, where is this wizard? So we have a number of towers here, which could possibly be the wizard. Um, this one seems like the most likely. Right, so I don't actually know much detail about the wizard that's in that particular tower, but let me look up what I do know about that tower because it's actually like literally between us and the castle we would often trade with. So we do have some information about it. Plus, I actually created this. So, okay, so this tower. So the wizard here does have an apprentice. It's a sixth level tower. We don't have anything like a name, in terms of its relationships, it does experience peace and trade with the castle just to its north. I'm going to do with the structure of this castle. So the question is this the tower, right, for that wizard that is calling for a mighty group of heroes? Rolled it. Got it. I'm going to say it's likely though, because looking, there is no other tower that's closer than that. So I'm actually going to roll twice and then take the higher bid. It was an 8 both times, which means that's a no. Right, so no, it is not in fact that wizard. So what wizard would it be? We do also have two other towers over this direction, off here to the west. We also actually that's it. Right, so it's gonna have to be one of these people. So I guess narrowing it down, is it this one? The answer is no. So it's just a 50-50. The answer is yes. Right, so this one. So it is in its cell C, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So C18. Just make a note for that. So we have a rumor. C18 wizard calling for heroes. Now there are a couple reasons. Oh, okay. And also, this is the wizard, but they're also dying. Right. So I need to find out more about them because I didn't actually create details about that. I'm going to save it for when I'm going to head that direction. Right, so that is something that we have learned. So we really haven't gotten information much about the abbey that we are in. But we did learn that there's something weird going on down that direction. Right, so I think maybe we should um, roll for another day. Right, so we're going to continue snooping around. I'm looking for a total of 12 is my hope here. Right, so Varos is going to roll. Terrible, is terrible. Meanwhile, Sariel, being the more competent of the two in general, well, his natural ability is not particularly great. He is reasonably lucky, it turns out, at this particular point in time, and he does actually discover something of significance related to the mystery that we have here. So, I'm going to go ahead and roll a prompt. So I'm just going to use the prompt table that we have from Dark to find out what we discovered. Okay, so the Dark prompt table is now telling me 91, vanish, 7, failure. Vanish, failure is, and this would be something like it's a secret, right? That something that this abbey is trying to conceal. Vanishing failure. Well, one thing we know is this abbey was relocated. So, might it have something to do with that? Possibly. Um, we don't really know why this abbey is in open war with the neighboring castle. So I'm wondering, right? I'm gonna go ahead and roll to see if this is true. But here's my first thought: is well, it's part of the reason I do this is so that you can see kind of how solo gaming can happen. So here's what my thought process is. So when I think banished failure, a few possibilities. One would be that there's something that failed that we're trying to like get rid of the effects of that failure or something like that. Another would be that somebody failed and is therefore banished because of that. Now, knowing that this abbey has relocated and is at war with the neighboring castle, I'm wondering, right, whether this was because sometime in the past, the priest who founded this abbey worked for the Lord in that castle and failed in some fashion and was banished. So I could imagine this being the case, and this could be a foundation for why that conflict exists. So I'm going to go ahead and roll to see if this is true. If that's not true, then I need to have another interpretation. Right? So that would suggest that there is something else that they have failed to do that we have discovered, and I might roll another prompt for that. But let's see. 11. So 11 tells me that is a rather weak, but yes. Right? So yes, it is something like that, that the priest failed to do something, in some way failed. The lord of the nearby castle was cast out and formed this small abbey in the past. Now, this is probably a while ago, I'm guessing, because it was enough time, right, for them to recruit like 60 people around them here in this abbey. So so it was something in the past, but that would explain why there's this hostility, and it would tell us it's a long-lasting hostility. So it is perfectly possible that maybe somebody here is responsible for what's happening out there. Now, one of the big things that we need to look for, now that we know that, is there any evidence of some connection to some kind of wizard? That's a big thing that I need to know as well, right? So I need to find out that. But is there a connection to some kind of wizard here? So again, we're going to investigate. Right, so that is the question now. All right. Oh, that was for Varos. Varos got a yes. Okay. So Sariel discovers this thing about the history. Meanwhile, Varos has no success about that, but does actually succeed in finding out whether or not there is some kind of connection to a wizard. Is there such a connection? I'd say if you have success with this, the answer is probably yes, right? Right, 16. So 16, yeah. Yeah, that's a yes. Right, so there is also a connection with a wizard here. So the question is, which wizard is it? So now this one, it doesn't make sense for it to be this wizard because we know that the wizard that is closest by uh, has peaceful relationships right with this faction. So it doesn't make any sense that they would be the ones causing problems. Right? So I'm just going to go ahead and rule that out. So it could be either of these wizards down here to, at the moment, our right, southwest. So let's go ahead and just see, like, is it the same one that where we know the person is dying, right, and is calling for heroes? That's a real possibility. I'm going to give this likely, which means that I'm going to roll twice and take the higher value. Right, so that one's a 3, that one's a 6. So even taking the 6 as a high value, no, this is not the one that we seem to have a connection to. Instead, it looks like we have a connection with the other one, right? So we did find a connection between us and also the wizard down here. It's a forest tower here. What is this? 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14. The C14. Right, so C14 there. We do have some kind of connection with them. Now I'm going to look here to just see what our connections are there. C14, and they obviously wouldn't have any connections this far out. They do have hostility, or C14 again. I lost it. Here we go. They do have hostility with the castle that's right here. So these two are not getting along, and they do have peace and trade with the abbey just to their north. So this one. All right. So that is kind of where we are at the moment there. Right, so it does look like there are connections down to here to this wizard. This wizard, it's plausible that they might possibly, because this is, again, this is not a huge map. Each of these is just a 2 mile hex. So we're talking about they are like 10 miles away from the village that we started in. They're like 8 miles away from the marsh the people were ending up in. So it's at least possible, right, that this may be something that's happening here. Now I also wonder whether this call for heroes from this sage over this direction might possibly have something to do with what he is doing down here, that wizard. So, at the very least, we now have some connection. Um, I'm going to go ahead and suggest that that's probably enough, right, for this session. We've done some investigation. We have now learned that there is a connection between this abbey and this wizard. So the question is, right, like, is this wizard capable of the things we've seen? And are they involved with this? Which is very possible. At the very least, we can't rule it out. Right. So we can't rule it out yet. Anyway. Right. So I think that that's a good place for us to call it. Right. So next time, our goal then is that we're going to travel down to that wizard's tower, see if we can do some investigation there, find out, right, might this wizard be the one that's responsible for what's happening up in King's Hand? As for now, this is Prof. E, signing off.